this program.
It is now that part of the program when we shall
Unbox, 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 unbox.
What's inside the box?
Hello, everybody. Good morning if you happen to be near me, and good afternoon if you happen to be near Daz, who is joining me today on this sort of live unboxing. A little bit last minute because we were struggling to figure out this like time coordination thing. So, anyways, good afternoon to you, Daz.
Yeah, quarter four. Quarter
Yeah.
to 4 in the afternoon over here.
So Dazatron, Daz from Dazatrons Diorama Llama, and I have decided that we're going to do some Cosmic Legions unboxing today. Like I said, we had to coordinate. He's over in the UK. I wasn't sure how much you wanted to share about where in the UK, but like to give them a sense. I guess.
West Midlands in the UK. Yeah.
Yep.
So near
and I'm over.
Birmingham. Yeah.
I'm on the west coast of essentially San Francisco, South City to be exact. And so I've known Daz for a little bit. So we were just chatting before we went live that, you know, we both kind of started to get really back into toys and into this whole YouTube thing during the sort of lockdown period. I'm never sure about like what, because some people say, you know, don't say certain words. And so, you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah. So we both started around that same time. And I was, it was actually a little bit before then I was starting to get into just watching things about toys. I wasn't buying. And other than this was my thing. This was my jam, right? Lego. And so, you know, just kind of getting back into nostalgia. I remember several years back, I found what was then called Toy Galaxy. Are you familiar with?
Yeah. Secret Galaxy now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. And I was just like, wow, he's doing these like toy history things. And then from there, it was all that kind of thing. It actually took a while before I got into sort of the toy news group of toy tubers and the unboxing kind of things. It was more just the nostalgia. And then,
same here.
And then it was like even video games for me. There was like these ones that sort of do the video game historian and do that. It's like, I guess I was just looking for that nostalgia hit, right? Then the lockdown era happened, the pandemic, and we were all at home. And for me, they announced a new Masters of the Universe. And I was like, oh, this is intriguing.
The Revelations one.
Yep. And I think at that point, I picked up a G.I. Joe Classified, like one, because my brother was really into those. I was curious, and I was like, oh, this is cool, but still didn't feel the need to like collect those. Then the Masters came, and I was like, wow, this is fascinating. A whole new, not just the Origins, but the 7-inch. And I was like, oh, I might check those out. And then kind of went from there. Saw your channel right around that time because I was like thinking about dioramas, and I'm also a little bit of an artist myself. And so I was intrigued by your stuff, man. Like it was, especially because it was like geared towards helping those who want to start off. Yeah, beginners.
Yeah.
And you were doing small projects, and you could kind of like, I could just watch this thing and it's like, and get this sense of like, yeah, I think I could do that. That's a smart way to start.
Yeah.
So you've got something
cool. Because that was the aim, really. I kind of got back into about the same time as yourself. So he was kind of just prior to lockdown. Takara, who did the original Transformers. So Hasbro obviously brought them over to America and the UK. But Takara back in Japan were the original creators of Transformers. They did what's called a masterpiece line, which is their kind of high-end collectible line. Really, really cool, but expensive, you know.
Yeah.
And they did my favorite character. So it was just luck, really. I grew up watching Transformers the movie. I still love that animation. I still think it's really cool.
I do too. I love
my favorite. Oh, it's brilliant.
I'm curious, did you see it in theaters? Oh, sorry.
I didn't. No.
Okay.
No, I didn't, unfortunately. But just everything, the soundtrack, the animation. Yeah, just watched it on repeat on VHS, you know, growing up.
Yep.
And so I just typed in Google Transformers, the movie, Hot Rod, and this Transformers masterpiece came up, and he's like, that's it. That's exactly how he looks in the cartoon. And I couldn't get my head around that, how far Transformers had come from the Hot Rod I had back in the day, which I'd swapped with a mate, and to what it was like now, you know. And so that was my first one that I picked up, and that was, I think, £55. And I remember even back then thinking, man, that's a lot of money for a toy, you know. And I kind of persuaded my wife to get it for me for my birthday. And and as I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm not going to get any more, you know. So she was happy. Yeah, no more toys in the house, you know. And so I think to be fair, it's probably a couple of years before I then started to go, okay, let's see what else is out there. And yeah, that was during lockdown. And again, found YouTubers who were kind of, there's a guy called Chris Feely.
Okay.
Chris McFeely. He does something called Transformers The Basics.
Oh.
And that's kind of like a history of each character.
Nice.
Within the Transformers universe. And again, it's that kind of nostalgia thing of wanting to find out a little bit more about kind of what I'd missed, or, you know, that stuff from my childhood that I didn't really know about. And yeah, that was the rabbit hole then.
Nice.
You know, but yeah.
And so I know we said we would do some unboxing, but let's just real quickly, just to sort of show what we're gonna do. We can throw those up, and just, you know, that is in fact a thing that is gonna happen. But you know, this is actually my first time speaking with Daz in person. So he's got the Block Commander over there, and I've got
Block Commander,
the Sphexxian Prison Guard. So we are going to do this. But like I said, this is my first time having some FaceTime with Daz. So just kind of give you a little context and just, you know, hang out with us. We actually did get our first person to jump in, which is really exciting. Hey, Evo Genius.
Hello, Evo.
Yes, the Basics of channel is great. So I'm assuming that's the Transformers.
Yeah.
I have to check that out. Basics of that's, you said Chris Feely or Chris McFeely?
I think it's Chris McFeely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out.
My phone.
You got a clown coming through? No, and so
yeah, that's my wife.
Well, it was the horn. Sorry. But it looks like you've already unboxed your other mythic Cosmic Legions.
Yeah.
Levit Thygar.
That's the one, Olek, isn't it? Yeah. This is the Grave Ring, is it? Grave Ring
when
edition.
he's like when he gets into like kind of a gladiator type ring, I believe, in the prison.
Yes, he hasn't got all the cool armor. You've got the other version, haven't you?
Yes, the
Tatar. Yeah,
which I'm really sure means something.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
You know, there's like something interesting happens here. Again, now we're all over the place, but check out his head. His sort of horn appendages are different.
Yeah, just seeing what's the difference.
So I don't know. They have yet to explain what's happened there, what the deal is there. But so it is a whole.
Has he still got the 3 bits in the middle, kind of like these, almost like extra eyes? Then the front.
He does not. He has sort of a medallion type, or what I'm interpreting as a medallion thing on his head.
So it's almost like that opens up, then, doesn't it? Maybe.
There is lore, and on the Four Horsemen website, they do break these down a little bit more. And this is, of course, a brand new line that's finally arrived in people's hands in the last couple months. And so, and in similar to Cosmic Legions, there's a rich lore there. The Four Horsemen folks are very much into like deep world building and building on that sort of. So a lot of us aren't that familiar, and I'll confess, even though I am on a show regularly with Oz called Legion's Class, and we try our best to share that stuff. Part of it is us just sort of using it as a space for us to learn and work with folks who have been around a little longer. But the nice thing about Cosmic Legions is we're all kind of like learning at the same time. And in fact, 2 Legions classes ago was the very first time we kind of delved into the basics of this lore. So we don't know much, just to throw that out there. We don't know much about these, but this I guess in the Kickstarter there was a gold version, and then they were also sort
Okay.
of selling these for like a little bit of add-on thing from where I ordered from. And so these are
That
of
was on some of the
the
advertising, wasn't it? In like a sand kind of
in
dune
the
thing.
sand.
Yeah.
So they haven't fully explained, but I believe this is essentially the skull of someone like Oleg.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he is the central protagonist of this unfolding story,
Okay.
which is
I did not
different
know that,
from
so that's cool. Yeah.
that's your He-Man. That's your
Yeah.
Adam Power. Is that his name from Power Lords?
Yeah, Adam
Um,
Power, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what's quite
and
nice, isn't it? That they kind of cut their teeth on the Paralords and the
yes.
Ace of Spacemen,
Yes.
which was, I mean, that was quite a few years ago there, wasn't it? That was, I think, before.
Oh, you
Mythic?
mean when the Horsemen did it?
Yeah, when the Horsemen did it. Yeah.
When the Horsemen did it was in the
Would it be
I
early
want to say it was in the
2000s?
2010s, in the in that decade, which is
Yeah.
a whole other time period from
Yeah.
now. And thanks for making us feel even older. No, but yes.
Well,
Anyway,
as I said, I've got this guy, isn't I? So he's the
speaking of
Griptog, is it?
Power Lords.
Yeah, so this is Paralords.
Can you say the name again? It was a Griptog, is that what you said?
Griptog, yeah. And his little gimmick was you could turn his head and he becomes this other character. He's got this kind of, claw arm type things. But I know Four Horsemen did a version of this. They did two colorways. They did a blue version. And I think it was kind of a version where the head was black.
Yep.
So it was nice, to see that they kind of took that, that line and did something else with it, because they were fans themselves.
Yep.
And that's, I think, then led into Cosmic Legion. So I just think that's a really cool thing. Yeah.
Did it even precede Legions? I'm trying to remember, but essentially, they had been kind of dabbling, doing their several like smaller lines like Gothatropolis and I think it was Seventh Kingdom, and then eventually landed on Mythic Legions with their big Kickstarter, and that obviously took off in a big way. But the science fiction was very much in sort of the it was in the Horsemen, right? I've heard Eric Treadaway talk a lot about that, Cornboy as well. And so they'd been working on Cosmic Legions as well. It was something they knew was in the future.
Yeah,
and
it was coming. Yeah.
As you pointed out, they were scratching that itch with things like trying to revive Power Lords. And it's especially relevant when you look at that figure you've got right there. I mean, if that thing doesn't scream, no, the one, sorry, even Oleg that you have, Thygon.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Colors, right? Like you can tell they're just like,
definitely.
This is Adam Power transformed into his alien form.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what attracted me to the line. I didn't really go in on Mythic Legions as much as I enjoyed looking at them. Of course. It wasn't really something I was interested in collecting in, but because quite a few of the toys that I've got back into after Transformers are quite sci-fi. I mean, Transformers is quite science fiction, really, isn't it? That's the kind of stuff that was kind of drawing me in. And so I saw was it Slog? The big green dude with the kind of the space helmet.
Cosmic Legions. Yep.
And
gorgeous.
That was the one that was like, oh, that looks so good, and I didn't back it actually on the Kickstarter, unfortunately. I'm kind of kicking myself now. Just did not have the funds at the time. He's one of those.
Oh, you're talking about for Cosmics.
For Cosmics,
yeah. They didn't kickstart these guys. They didn't kickstart them, but they did do that sort of first pre-order from them.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because I was already looking at Four Horsemen at that stage then.
Yes,
I was kind of looking at their classic stuff because I was kind of getting back into Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
So I know Classics was already kind of been and gone, but I was kind of delving into a bit of that stuff, and that kind of got me onto their website, and that's where I saw the Cosmics.
Yeah, you and I sounds like some very similar paths and kind of like swum in certain similar waters, aside from we realized we're both, 1976 kids. Which I was told, I don't put much stock in this, but I always referred to, my parents would say, oh, you're a bicentennial baby, which is, the bicentennial celebration of the revolution of this colony against yeah. Anyway, so we're back, bringing it all back. But anyway, we'll get into the unboxings in a second. But just so you know, as I sort of started to mention, this is my first time connecting with Daz. I was starting to talk about how I was really into his channel, learned a lot. So much so that just a couple of weeks ago, I ventured into some Dio-ish work specifically for my channel. 100% inspired by this person right over here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I've been watching that, and it sat on the idea for like a while before I felt like I was in a place where I could make a mess and do some stuff. It took about a year. So since back then, I think I started chatting with you. He's like, "Oh, this is great, thank you. Like, this is giving me ideas." And since then, started a channel, connected with you that way, and here we are, right? We become toy tubers.
Yeah, I know, because we've been chatting for a while, haven't we? Off and on.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to finally kind of come together, which is really good.
And figure out the schedule.
Well, yeah, but that's just, as you said, having so much distance, isn't it, between us? But I think just something to point out with the diorama thing, because I think when I started looking at dioramas, when you kind of have a look on Google or you look on YouTube, it's a little bit daunting, actually, the diorama community, because there's so much insanely good stuff. I mean, it's insane. That if you were going to have a go at this yourself, you would look at that and kind of run a mile. And so really, when I started my channel, it was very much about, okay, I'm not an expert in this. I've got an art background. So obviously, I've got a few things to help me. But this is new as well. So it's kind of me learning as well as I went along, and just kind of think, well, what can we do that's quite simple that anybody could have a go at? And for me at the time, space was a big issue.
Yes.
As it still is, and so a big thing was kind of risers. There's a guy called Bobby Skullface who's like a big in the Transformers community, and he'd often talk about get your figures on risers so you can display them all and you see them all at different levels. And so I started off, these were kind of some of my earliest YouTube videos, was just making some really basic just kind of steps, if you like. So when you put your character on there, you can have one character then here, let's get him on there, and then you can have your other character on top. And it's just easier to display them then and make better use of that kind of space. So that's kind of the way I started. And the idea was that actually anybody can make that. And if that looks quite daunting to anybody, I promise you it really isn't. So that was the idea, was trying to kind of get other people in the toy community to have a go at making some of this stuff themselves. So when I see people, like yourself doing that, that's a really big encouragement to me, because that's what it's all about,
Yeah, well, mission accomplished, because directly you had that intention. I watched those videos, and it absolutely inspired me to start with this. It created a cool background that really actually sparked. We were talking about how I've just started this thing with the shorts. That sparked that made me feel comfortable, like, oh, okay, I kind of like visually how this works. It feels like a action figure background from some of the catalogs back in the day, or the card backs. So I was like, great. And so I started doing this the shorts in front of that thing, and it's been great. And you know what, I'm sitting
it's nice
here.
That you've got a consistency as well, haven't you?
Yes.
Within
now
that. So each one,
I am trying, as you were talking, I was trying to find the link to that video where you actually created that base right there, the sort of Transformers one.
Okay, yeah.
But I couldn't find that right now, so I put in right now the link that I just put in, and I'll share those in the description here. And what we're gonna do also is we're gonna put this on my channel, and then I'm going to send him the video, and he's going to upload it over on Daz's channel. So if you haven't yet, you need to head over to Daz's channel and hit like and subscribe and do all of the YouTube things. So let me do that. Yeah, you're 6370. Is that right? That's an interesting with the URL.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't. Yeah, that was
So
given to me.
yeah.
I
No,
haven't
but
changed it.
of
Yeah,
course, but that is it right there. So
yeah.
definitely
That's the
head
one.
over there
Yeah,
and you can see all of this stuff. And really, when he says for beginners and really trying to inspire beginners, that's really what they are. Kind of talks you through it. And the idea of the smaller bases was like when I saw that, you mentioned that it's real intimidating to look at the dials because they're really good. Not only is it good scale wise, right?
yeah,
Oftentimes you're
yeah,
seeing these people doing larger sets for
yeah, yeah, yeah,
shelves and stuff, but the notion of a base was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We're talking a little piece of foam.
yeah.
You did a great one for the D&D figures that I really liked. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Is that something in progress?
Yeah, I was
Or
going to go and fix
scraps?
that. I haven't actually painted that yet. So I did the build, and the videos on the channel for the build. I suppose the
Awesome.
two main things that I focus on are bases, because again, it doesn't take up a lot of space, as you said. It's not like a whole kind of scene.
Yep.
So this was another one, which is more of a kind of a sci-fi type thing, which is why I brought that one out today. Is we're doing kind of sci-fi characters, and there's that bigger version. That one there.
Oh my God, I need to see what you all have over there. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But again, it looks complicated, but when you watch the video, hopefully you'll see actually it's not as complicated as it looks. Yeah. And then the other thing I had a go at, which I need to kind of go back to, are these here. Now I don't know if I can see if I can move this out of the way a little bit.
That's so cool.
So these are what I called breakates. And the idea is that this is kind of like a frame. So if you've got a lot of people in the community have kind of Billy bookshelves kind of from IKEA. Yep. So you can kind of put these on the side of your Billies, and it kind of creates almost like a frame around your display. So again,
real quick, you mean inside the shelves? Inside?
So it actually goes on the edging of the shelf. So the back of it.
So you're framing the entire bookshelf.
So you're framing the entire bookshelf, just one section. Yeah. Wow. So where you got like your little kind of shelving section. So then each section then can have a different theme. So this is based from Transformers the movie. There's a particular scene where they're kind of shooting out, and you're getting all the kind of battle damage on the buildings. So yes. So having one of those on both sides just kind of again frames your display without having to make everything. Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, and it hints at a world. I love it.
Yeah. So that I suppose those are the main things that you'll see on the channel, really.
Very cool. So yeah, definitely subscribe, check back, see what Daz has got going on. So many good ideas. Evo Genius says that looks so good. Love that idea. 100%. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough, Daz. It's really been inspiring and welcoming. And so also fun fact, both he and I have an educational background. We're both teachers, actually. You're in secondary and I'm in high school, essentially the same thing. That's a little translation there for you. But so part of this too is oddly like using our teaching skills a little bit to kind of break things down as simply as possible. So I've appreciated that about you. Before knowing you were a teacher, I was like, oh, this person really knows how to sort of break things down simply, like lower the affect, allow me to learn, all of that kind of stuff. So great stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, thank you.
Before we get into the actual unboxing, so the conversation earlier, hey Kirby, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Clarifying, Power Lords and OSM predated Mythic Legions. And then they were still in the Golios era, concurrent to Gothatropolis. Part of why initially Mythic Legions was going to be smaller and Golios compatible, which a lot of people don't realize. But if you're not familiar with Golios, I was just having a conversation with someone because a lot of people
only discovered them recently. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of folks are now have actually been checking in with me, because a lot of what I've covered have been what people sort of say, like these weird, like indie toys, or like not from Hasbro, not from Mattel, really is what that translates to, not from Playmates, right? Whether it's AWOC, which are like over there, and I don't want to, but anyway, and they're like, yeah, it seems like now with PowerCon recently, a lot of people are talking about indie toys. In fact, tomorrow night, no, tonight, over on Toy Connections, it's actually going to be kind of an indie fest where we're going to talk about that, this explosion. And I bring that up because Glyos, I was just talking with Ken, it's really like Glyos and Mythic Legions, I think, are some of the like big, like, we are here, and in my mind at least, were these big moments in toy collecting, where with Glyos, really, I don't know how informed they were by this notion, but I keep thinking about it like in terms of open sourcing, right? They created a system that was sort of like open source technology, where it's a system of pegs that anybody can use to create whatever figures, and, you know, share the information about it, encourage people to do that. And all of these things are now compatible, which for me,
and that's the cool thing, isn't it?
Right? You know? Systems and putting bits and pieces together. And so that was huge. And there was a lot of nostalgia with that, because people definitely did original characters, but inevitably people were like, well, what if I did a Masters of the Universe type tribute figure in Glyos, or a G.I. Joe type, or a Transformers, or a Battle Beast? And so I feel like that kind of started this rumbling, and a lot of people were like literally doing these with like resin and mold and making their own. And some people were printing. And then Mythic Legions, right, and the Four Horsemen, when they were looking to do their own line, they were exploring Glyos and were looking to make Mythic Legions compatible. And again, I think that was a watershed moment for the indie toy thing, because what they then did was, with the notion of the system, of a play system, they created figures that didn't end up in Glyos. They wanted a little bit more articulation and a little bit more sizing, but they took the idea of the pop and swap. Right. And worked that into Mythic Legions. And so I think those two ideas were huge. Yes. Thank you.
Well, this is what led me to Glyos. Because, because this was the old system. So, you know, magnetic kind of connectors. So, you know, if you've got any old school people in the chat, you know, we've got, this is Mego Micronauts, which is based on the system that Takara used for the Microman line. So these were kind of the large. Microman is usually much smaller than these are, but they all use this magnetic system, and they even did kind of almost like a He-Man style one, which were called Fantanauti, I think it was, or Fantanauts.
Out of Italy, is that Italy, where that kind of? And I confess, I didn't know about that until you shared the video about it. And I was like, oh, what are those?
And because they're really expensive, I've been able to track one. Well, I've seen a few on eBay, but they tend to be quite battered, or the missing limbs and stuff like that. So to get a complete one, you're talking quite a lot of money, you know, whereas these guys you can still pick up actually for decent amounts. But yeah, that whole compatibility thing, being able to swap them out, I was kind of, again, Googling, looking online for other systems that might use that kind of technology. And it was, Glyos that then came up, and he's like, okay. You know, because I'd completely missed that. I hadn't seen, those toys at all.
Have you seen the Micronauts? And we're totally all over the place, but real quick, have you seen the people doing Micronauts inspired Glyos figures yet?
I haven't. I've seen what's the monkey company called?
Fresh Monkey Fiction.
Fresh Monkey, yeah. I've seen their kind of homage, but no.
I'll share those with you. There's a couple of us Micronauts heads out there, and as I find them, we're all like, hey, did you see this? Did you see this? But yes, there's some Glyos figures that were very much inspired by especially the sort of alien figures that came out later. Less of the the time travelers, but anyway. So all of that is the DNA. Yes, it does come back to Mythic Legion or Cosmic Legions. Absolutely, those guys are informed by all of the things we said. The Atom Power, the Micronauts, and of course all the other usual suspects, the Star Wars, the
Yeah,
Dunes.
yeah.
So here we have today. Let's get to some unboxing. We've got some bugs. We got bugs. We've got some Sphexxians in the parlance, so the language of cosmic legions. And so I'm just loving the fact that we are getting all sorts of creatures and aliens. So why don't we go ahead and just sort of do the business? Did you do any pre-work? Did you do any pre-work?
No, but I've got my knife here, so
yeah,
because
that's the part that's always fun and awkward. And I realized we could have been unboxing while we were talking. So we'll unbox and talk. But in the chat, oops. See already, I've got a bug hand that fell right out of the box.
I've always quite liked bug type characters though. When you talked about sectors recently, one of your videos,
probably just once. No, but yes, in the news section, I was talking about Nacel's sectors line.
Although I didn't collect them myself, I've always had a bit of an affinity towards them. And these kind of, again, just that kind of, there we go. Oops. Here we go.
Gorgeous in there. Plastic force field containment system. Let's go with that in my head canon.
Yeah.
Beautiful background art too by Nate Barch, who
I missed that.
I had the pleasure of meeting and talking with at in May. They did like the first West Coast Mythic Legion. Look at that. Yep. Gorgeous.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, there's got to be a way to use these. A cool little helmet, and what a blast. I'm sure Nate had a blast doing this. Yeah, and there's some Micronauts in there. There's some, there's all of that stuff in there. Anyways, I got
back to the idea display, isn't it?
Exactly.
A lot of companies are doing this now, aren't they? Putting some sort of background. I know Hasbro,
and I think a lot of
their Transformers.
A lot of this, since this is a new line that's coming out, they were able to rethink packaging, right? Since Mythic Legions, and that's become a thing now, rather than the sort of standard one cardboard back and of Mythic Legions. They're slipping that in, and they do change from character to from groups of characters at least. Like I opened, so you'll, I don't know if you remember, but your Olek has a slightly different.
Yes, he does. Yeah, he does.
These wings here, I did this on a stream recently. Just like translucent goodness. You see all the little texture there. That's very, very bug-like. That the old company that did Sectard could only dream of, right? They did it with sort of vacuum formed plastic, and they did a good job. They had that sort of like shimmery rainbow type thing going on, and those very fly-like, bug-like. But this is the Four Horsemen doing something. Oh, look at that guy. Yeah, he is gorgeous. I love the armor.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's such an interesting choice of like, let's do a bug. I did unbox him over on Oz's. I don't know if that was a week ago now or 2. Time is a weird construct, but the colors on this thing are great. As you'll see, like it's not just a rust, but there is also sort of a shimmery green
kind of accented it, haven't they?
Yeah,
so almost like a gold, isn't it? Like a gold effect. Yeah, it's really cool.
And I actually haven't done a ton of staring at this thing, but I
think they've used some like I don't know if I saw in one of the reviews, like almost like a pearlescent paint on some of the figures on this. So again, as you turn it in the light, you get like that. The different effects, which is really cool.
So if you're not familiar with these, and if you've never unboxed them, like there's definitely a lot more particular to these Sphexxians. So like these are the mandibles. I don't know if that's the proper part of this kind of insect. In these that need to be attached to his face, there's a bunch of hands. There's the antennae here that are kind of this softer rubber. They're held in with a piece of tape. I always wonder, you know, as a kid, obviously these aren't necessarily made for kids in play, but that's the one thing about modern toy collecting is just like the packaging. I don't remember having nearly this hard a time with my GI Joes. Definitely not my Kenner 3.75.
We just ripped
right?
it apart, though. Let's
just
be honest.
rip it
When we were
apart.
kids, we didn't care about keeping it nice, you know.
Yep.
I
actually did.
You know,
I did have an older brother, who's 5 years older than me, and I had a mother. Or have a mother, but at the time she had her own little doll collection, and for whatever reason, it wasn't from the get. It was like we're buying you toys. At least by the time I remember, my brother's 5 years older. I don't know how their dynamic was when he was first buying toys, but I always kind of like had in my head, drilled in me that, oh, this is a collection.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, and then my brother, at least, drilled into me that I needed to take care of them.
Yeah.
And man, especially when I was little, man, he would get so upset if something broke or scratched. So I definitely had a little bit of that. He was also the same guy who was like with comic books, was like teaching me how to hold it so I wouldn't mess the binding. So I had a trainer pretty early on.
That's cool. See, I didn't kind of get into that into my teens, you know.
Well,
that's where I started the whole collectible thing. Yeah, so.
Well, I get a little jealous when I hear about kids like, we just tore into them and had it. I was like, oh, I wish I was that free. I was raised to be an uptight toy collector, I guess. Not so bad. My brother, you know, he played too, but
well, yeah, I remember my mate growing up, he used to keep all the boxes, everything, you know, so he was very much into the collectible side of it.
Okay.
He would buy 2 of them. So even
as a kid?
But as a kid, yeah. So I think his parents must have just hit on that idea that these are going to be worth something in the future.
Smart.
And, you know, so yeah. So whereas I was just like, nah, you know.
Are you still in touch with your mate?
That though, you know?
With your mate? Sorry, I'm gonna try. I love the language. Are you still in touch with him as an adult? Does he still have those?
No. We kind of parted ways quite a long time ago, actually.
I wonder if he still has them.
I reckon he will.
Yeah, you think that was like truly a dedicated thing. Yeah.
Well, I'm still in touch with my one mate who I pretty much swapped my Transformers collection as a kid with his Transformers comic collection. So when he was getting into Transformers big time, I was getting into comics. So we did a bit of a swap, and again, I regret that now as well, because, you know, it'd be nice to have some of those toys back again, but it's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah. It's funny, you and I were talking earlier, and I was kind of acknowledging that, one, I have limited space here in the home, and two, like you, I've got 2 young people in my home, 2 children, and so it's not all about me and my toys. Despite appearances, the good thing is my kids do like Lego, and the whole household is very much into Star Wars. So this was with the blessing of everyone. My wife actually really loves this display. When I first did it in our old place, she was like, wow, that looks fantastic, the way it's sort of like, you know, knolled and sorted. So we did it here. So I'm lucky that way. But I'm not going to have these forever is where I'm getting at. And so part of the channel is being able to just record it, because like you said, a lot of us don't have our childhood toys anymore. And I wish I did. So, and you know, I'm documented, and I'm sentimental, and I love having stuff. I'm also a little bit conscious about stuff, a little bit. And so I'm okay with not necessarily having it, but I do wish I had pictures of it. Like I look back, it's like, man, I wish I had pictures of mine and playing with it. The internet has allowed us to be able to research pretty much at any time pictures and videos. I mean, it's beautiful. I can go back and look at the commercials from my childhood, right? Like that's how wild we're at.
That's mad, isn't it? Yeah.
So that's great. And like now I just want to be sure that I have some kind of record of like, look, I'm playing with my toys. I remember that. So that when I'm old and maybe senile, they can remind me of just the good times of when I used to play with toys as a not quite elderly adult kid. Anyway, man, getting these things out, this is, while I appreciate it in transport, these things are just a little bit annoying to me, because especially with the level of paint detail on a Four Horsemen figure, I sometimes, like in my head, even though I've never actually experienced this, think like, oh no, I'm gonna scratch it coming out. Again, that's my older brother who drilled that stuff in my head. So
I mean, I would say be careful always. I mean, people are watching this channel, people who buy toys, aren't they, usually? But yeah, I nearly broke the gun from Oleg's gun.
Oh really?
Got this, yeah, just pulling it out. I was just tugging it a little bit too hard, and it hasn't, but I could feel it bending. I was like, oh, I need to be careful here, you know.
Which is it like a rifle? I'm trying to remember what it looks like. And by the way, like this thing, this dual layer,
yeah, that's the one.
Is frustrating. Thank you, Horseman. I appreciate it, but still, like, oh man,
oh, it's secure.
Yeah, it's secure.
It does the job, you know.
Yes. So I guess thank you for that, but the thing is, you create toys that we want to open up and play with, and it just creates that.
These wings are amazing. They are just insane.
And you've probably heard about the whole, like, you know, they look like they can separate, but they don't. So be careful of.
Yes,
you've heard this. Yes, because I have seen people show me theirs that have broken off. They're like glued, essentially, right? Is that? Yeah, they're
because they do look like they can pull apart, don't they? Let's be honest, they look like you could do that.
They do, and it's right near this joint.
Yeah.
So on a quick read, you're like, oh, there's a joint there. How do I?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit.
No, that's a good point. So these mandibles and all that kind of stuff, do they just? Oh yeah, they just kind of slot in, do they?
They slot right in.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't bring any heat over here, but whatever.
No,
I didn't need any. I didn't need any. It's the oh, these guys don't have any pauldrons. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the wings. May require maybe a little heat.
Those are going in quite nicely, actually.
I will say that's the one thing about these figures in particular that perplexes and sort of makes me worry a little bit is the joints, or the pegs on these wings. These are a smaller Gothatropolis style wing connection. For the folks who have Mythic Legions, like, we know that we get these weird random adapters with a lot of figs and we're like, what is this back adapter for? It has really small holes, and a lot of us don't have those old Gothatropolis wings, so we're kind of like, what uses these? And it would be for connections to things like this. And I'm assuming the reason I said it perplexes me is because it's such a tiny little peg. That's the thing that worries me, actually. And it's relatively shallow. So I don't know if that's good or bad in terms of the breakage. Maybe it's better for it to be shallow, but
probably better to be shallow, I would have thought.
Yeah. But Mythic Legions has the sort of bigger diameter, thicker peg hole that I'm never going to worry is going to break off. However, have you, like, I
was nearly putting those on that way, but I just thought they're going to go backwards, haven't they? I haven't stuck it in yet, but I just they're going to go the other way, aren't they?
You know, that's actually kind of cool, though. That looked kind of cool coming forward.
Yeah, coming forward.
And I had the same question. I was wondering, I just always kind of looking at their photos and how it was intended by the artist. But as you and I know, well, I don't know what your take on with art is, but rules are meant to be broken sometimes.
Absolutely.
And you can find an aesthetic.
As
another
Picasso
way
said,
cool
learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them like an artist. You know.
Yes.
We always use that in school. Learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them like an artist. I like it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that looks really cool. I like that.
Just looking at the sculpt, like, okay, from the art connoisseur, appreciator, and you, like when you see these figures from the Horsemen, you said you don't have any, or you didn't get deep into Mythic Legions.
No, actually, I don't have any Mythic Legions. Yeah, I was thinking if I had one of them, but it was the classics. One of the Masters of the Universe classics. That's the only other 4 Horsemen I have. Yeah.
So what's your take on this? You've had one, Oleg, and this now, and in one of their, factory produced products that they're selling. What's your take as someone who like looks at art on this? And I know I'm kind of like leading a little bit, but what do you think?
Well, I think the thing that stands out is the detail. It's just the incredible amount of detail. I mean, I actually quite like toys that aren't detailed. So, like the one that I showed you earlier, and the classic vintage kind of sci-fi. There's almost something quite nice about the lack of detail. And
you showed this real quick. You teased that before the stream. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind spending just a little bit of time showing us this and telling us what it is.
Yeah, so
I didn't know about this until you featured it on your channel.
Yeah, I did a spotlight on this. This is one of the few live streams that I've done where I opened up this this character. It's called the TH3 project, and it's from 1979. So it's an old figure. You know, I was 3.
Yeah, we were 3
when this came out. But I just thought it looked really cool, and you got this kind of helmet here, which is kind of almost like an Aztec type thing. You know, we've got different cultures represented with the kind of the dolls, which is really cool. Again, back in the 70s, because that wasn't
fantastic.
That's quite an unusual thing, you know. And there's 3, they're all females as well.
Yep, so I remember that. I was like, wow, what is this line?
But it is. There are 3 female characters, and they all have these kind of chrome helmets with these kind of Aztec weird masks on them. You get vehicles, you get weird kind of tech units that they hook up to and that they light up. You can put batteries in them and they kind of light up and stuff. So it's really cool. And their system was that you've got, remember, like laser tag, laser quest. I don't know what it was in the USA. You know,
it was laser tag here and photon.
Photon. So they had their own kind of weapon system, so the kids could dress up as the characters, have their own helmet.
Without I'm assuming without the tech part of it.
With the tech part, yeah. So
in 79 they had like
so they had like this kind of
but not like a
it had like targets on the other one, so it was like sound effects and stuff. Yeah,
it's probably like light based. Okay.
But I don't know how advanced it was, but it certainly had kind of targets and light effects and sound effects and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of went with the figures. So I suppose as you were playing with the figures, you could kind of dress up as the figures as well, which is quite cool. But they're quite kind of the aesthetic for me is like, it is kind of Star Wars in some ways, isn't it? Because if you think about the stormtroopers, it's very clean, you know. But then you look at these guys, and it's insane.
Yeah, that's how we started. You were talking about the detail. You like sort of that retro, not necessarily overly detailed thing, but
that's usually what I'm drawn to. But there's just something really interesting when you look at these. It kind of feels real. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing where you think, absolutely, I kind of see this, you know. And I suppose because they've taken a lot of their cues from films that we've watched growing up.
That's right.
You know, even like Armageddon and, you know, what's it called, Event Horizon, all that kind of stuff. If you look at the spacesuits in there, you'll see lots of these kind of you know, details. So I think it kind of all ties into that imagination, isn't it? We've kind of seen this, it's familiar. So it's kind of grounded, you know, in reality. And that's what really drew me to these. It was just that this is just too cool. Now that you have two Cosmic Legions, these being your first of the Legions type 4 Horsemen figures. Yes, they're detailed
from the art perspective, like what I trip out on is the execution, right?
Yeah.
From like,
Yeah.
because I want to be, sorry, pun not intended, a fly on the wall in the factory. I've said this a couple times because I want to know how, in a assembly line setting, they're able to do things like, okay, your job is to do a subtle pearlescent wash
Yeah.
that can't be overdone, and it has to
Yeah.
be consistent. If you wouldn't, can you throw yours back here? Just like you can tell, like there's a consistency that
Yeah.
happens on these. Like, how do they achieve that? Like, it's someone's job to with an airbrush to get it, but like I don't know if some people assume with factory work, you know, like, oh, that's unskilled labor or whatever, but there is a skill here. Granted,
Oh
you're
gosh, yeah.
repeating it
Yeah.
thousands of times, but
And I think it's important to note as well, it doesn't happen everywhere. You know,
you
it's
mean
almost like an
across other
expectation.
toys?
You're buying a product, so you expect
Yep.
QC to be good.
Yep.
But
Yep.
actually, it's not always good, especially even in the big companies. I mean, I buy lots of Transformers, and you still get QC issues, you know. So to have a company like the Four Horsemen, who are not, you know, they're not Hasbro,
Nope.
producing toys like this. I mean, I follow the Four Horsemen, but you know, I'm not into like all the forums and stuff. So whether there have been QC issues and stuff, I don't know. But I certainly haven't heard about it.
To that point, this is a Mattel figure, and it's interesting how I know that I've seen some people and I've wondered, like, wow, yours has a really dark wash. So there is definitely some consistency issues in how they're handling it. And I think a lot of that comes with the territory of the Four Horsemen being sort of like these artisans, like they love this stuff, and they're now also the money people calling the shots. So they're like, well, if that means we're going to spend a little bit of time actually getting this dialed in at the factory in a particular way and sending back rounds of like, no, that's not quite right. They'll do it. And that's just not something you're getting. And this is still great. I mean, the detail is still there in 2023. There are definitely these sort of lines from Mattel and Hasbro geared to that. But if this were a Cosmic Legions figure, best believe that we'd be getting some treatment to show us this back sculpt, some level of paint, and
the price point isn't that different now, is it? That's the scary thing. The price point of this guy actually isn't that much different to.
There's probably about $8 US between this guy and that guy on a pre-order direct from the Horsemen. Maybe a little more. I'm trying to remember what's deluxe, but yeah, it's not that far. And then we'll get a figure like this from Mattel. That definitely has a little bit more, but these are the deluxe. Where I live here in the Bay Area, they try to sell these for $40.49, and then you can price check it to the standard price across the country, which is roughly, I think, 33, 34. So essentially, this is closer to the price point of this.
£45. And I paid £50 for this guy. Now, to be fair, I got this guy on eBay. I was quite fortunate that there's a seller selling these for a decent price, because obviously eBay can rip you off. You know, you got to be careful. There are scalpers out there, but this guy, he was selling them at a good price. So I was happy to pay the £50 because, as you say, I can pay £50 for a Hasbro or Mattel, and the quality won't be as good as what I'm seeing here. And the articulation on these, it's just insane, isn't it? Really, what you can do.
Yeah, and I think that's where I wanted to ask you, as someone who's new. I love talking to folks who get their sort of like first Legions adjacent figure in hand, and so there's that part of it, and these are great. I'm just starting to kind of put my Sphexxian parts together, but this armor of what that bug, what this species of bugs would do in terms of armor helmet. Super cool.
It's awesome.
Look at that. That's like, you mentioned movies earlier, and that's where my brain goes to with these. This is like, this is like creating something for screen readiness. You know what I mean? Like, and actually more so because I've seen movie props, like they read for a couple seconds from a distance. This thing like is wild in terms of the detail that they get for you to just stare at up close. And of course now it's refusing to focus, but you get the idea. Real quick, we've got some folks who've jumped in since you and I have started blah blah blahing, and so let me go back. We did see JMac earlier and Evo Genius. JMac, while we were talking about sort of collecting and stuff, I can relate. I have the ultimate struggle. I enjoy minimalism and a clutter-free life, and also toy collecting. Yeah, man, that's like this is my attempt to kind of create some level of sort of minimal, but like I've got a bunch of little pieces of Lego resembling Star Wars ships. Star just woke up. Yeah, man. He and I started talking about, I think 6:30 my time to kind of get set up. 6:30 a.m. here on the West Coast of the United States of America. 4:30 over there in the United Kingdom. So yeah, JMac is here. Folks are here. Thanos, fellow Californian, is here, and my co-host last week for the Brick Something News, awesome toy photographer, who we unboxed Cosmics together on, I think, Oz's channel, because he actually was able to win one, which was awesome. One that I don't have, a Tusk. I don't know if you're familiar with the Tusk. They looked a little bit more armored, slimmed down, definitely more human-like silhouette. Pains.
They remind me again of the Paralords versions that they did. They kind of resemble. Obviously, they're slightly different, but yeah.
Again, but a really cool, like, alien, non-human armor, which is so cool. Aaron, good to see you. Hey, Aaron just did a great. Speaking of dios, are you familiar with Random Diorama?
No.
Great channel. You need to check it out. Random is fantastic. He does really long streams, usually on a Friday night. He's trying to catch up on those hours, but he does some amazing stuff too.
Fantastic.
From small to big. Right now, he's been working on a really cool like sci-fi computer console.
Wow.
Doing it in colors that I think you and I would appreciate, like bright red console, green screen.
Nice. Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Star. So Star, if you're unfamiliar, is a Cosmic Legions aficionado, is a hardcore fan, even before this thing came out, hardcore science fiction person. And he loves the Sphexxians, though I do feel that customizing these outside of paint shop is going to be rough. So many limbs, wings that can be blocked by getting too crazy with alterations, and you're 100% right. Are you noticing that now as you're putting this thing together, how much goes into this figure?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you have do you have the little arms in yet?
Well, I haven't put the wings in yet, just because they're a little bit tight, so I want to be careful with those. But I managed to get the other bits in. But they are amazing.
So we've done mandibles. We are gonna. You've done your antennae, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what the proper term is. So, do you normally need to heat those up to put those in?
I'm trying to remember if I heated them. I think Mythic Legions wings and Cosmic Legions pauldrons, the bigger ones, I always do. These I don't think I did because I was on Oz's channel. Let's these, I believe these holes are okay. I'm trying to orient. So
I might leave those off for a little bit. I think I might just get
you might want to
a heat gun
here
on the holes on there.
I'll trailblaze, and if I break mine.
Well, you've got them connected on your other one, haven't you?
On the other one I did. I'm trying to remember. I don't believe I heat. You know what? Yeah, I'm just seeing the resistance. I will definitely want to heat that up before putting them in. There's also these bits, right, for the little gun type things. They use a different attachment, which is a new attachment for the Legions. Let's see. This, I see that, and you'll kind of see them on the back or on
Yeah,
his on the oh sorry, I've got the wrong figure, but I think they're essentially the same on their bracers, on their forearm bracers.
I'm just thinking, I don't think I've got any of those on the Block Commander.
You
Has he
do?
got those?
Oh, the little bits, the little guns.
I don't think he has. He's got
Maybe
his
not.
2 extra arms.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
But do you see those holes on his forearm
But yeah, I
bracers?
can see the holes on the back. Yeah.
To me, when I saw that, I was like, man, talk about Micronauts, right?
Yeah.
But that's what these are for, and you kind of throw them in there, and different
Okay.
characters, their guns, their weapons. Let me see who I have here.
Actually, you can answer a question for me, because I noticed these on, is it Olek? What are the little clear things? What are those?
Ah, gotcha. Top left of the package, there are these little clear pegs.
Yeah.
So what those are, if you have a weapon, this is not the best example. So this is Vorga, who so far, and I anticipated this, and it's held up to be true, is my favorite character in this line.
That weapon is awesome.
She does have, this gun is fantastic. And
It's
again,
amazing.
modular. You take this piece off and they have different attachments. So like one of the newer Sphexxians has a drill using the same thing. Here you go. Let me show you. I'll get to that peg, but it's...
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the instructions on the Olek. So
yeah, there's not much by way of instructions. Maybe that's their way of promoting the cabal, so you can join and get in the community and talk.
Yeah.
But so I was looking at Vorga. She doesn't have any guns either, but like Zirian, the Zirian Spire has like weapons and guns that have that hole, the same hole on it. And so here, so you use those as a connection point to kind of attach it to the armor, essentially, if that makes sense. So it's like a clear, like almost like a holster. If there was a holster on here.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Right.
For those.
That makes sense. Okay.
But can you just imagine what customizers and third-party custom companies are going to be able to do with these things?
Absolutely.
It's just again, what's up, Thanos? Good to see you. Hey, Lawrence is here. Sorry, he will, or maybe not anymore. That was a little bit ago, but not that long ago. Hey, Lawrence. Greetings from the West Coast in the UK, going out to you in Detroit, Michigan, or in the Detroit area.
Hey, guys.
Since I've got my UK friend here, this is Radio Brick on Pirate Satellite. You'd appreciate that, I hope, Punk with Toys. A little bit of the clash there for you. Star, trying to figure out a way to have a more humanoid character wear the Sphexxian armor like a trophy. A more humanoid. Yeah, so like they got this thing and they want to rock it like Ezra Bridger, taking old Imperial helmets. Yeah, that would be fascinating, because there's a little bit of this that's going to need to happen for them to get into this guy. But yeah, it's definitely it's a customizer's challenge, definitely, to make these work, to your point earlier. Hey, Thanos, I'm so happy that you actually get a day off. You do some hard work out there, man. Hopefully we get to, I'm sure we'll see each other online soon, but I don't know if folks are getting together tonight for a stream. Let's see. And with Star, maybe it's due to volume of figures. For Horsemen don't produce the numbers that those huge companies produce, so perhaps it's easier to remain more consistent around the QC. I think so, Star, but I honestly think it's more because they can produce and reproduce. They can change their quantities at the factory. And I just think that they have more people on the ground and kind of paying attention to these things and doing more rounds of revision and back and forth than maybe some of these larger lines are budgeting for and allowing for their teams, right? I imagine, like, I'm really familiar with the Hasbro teams because they've put those forward in front of the consumers a little bit more. And so That's my guess. But you know who might be able to answer some of these things is someone over at the Four Horsemen Studios, Trevor 16 Shooter, who is responsible for all the amazing photos of these figures that we see on packaging.
They're incredible photos.
And in promo shots. Yeah, and really giving us a sense of this world. Really maximizing that dio work. If you want someone to champion the dio maker, Daz, check out his streams.
Yeah. 16 Shooter.
16 Shooter, absolutely. Yes, if you're not familiar, which it sounds like you aren't, I think I've just opened a wonderful world for you.
Definitely. Kids. Yeah, there's 2 guys there I need to be checking out.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we're talking about QC and how is it that the Four Horsemen are able to achieve this level of detail consistently across essentially what are like these mass-produced figures compared to, say, what's achieved by sometimes with Mattel. Sorry, this cape is just embarrassingly bad. But
what I don't understand though, Brick, is that you get I mean, I know it's not Kickstarter, but kind of HasLabs. You know, which are your high-end, these are expensive items, and you're still getting QC issues, even with those high-end items. So,
in terms of QC issues, tell me a little bit about like which ones you're thinking of that had QC issues.
Well, the only one I've got in on, being a Transformers fan, was Star Saber, and they've just done their version of Deathsaurus as well, which I haven't picked up. But yeah, I mean, thankfully, mine was okay. But in the community, there was a number of people that had Q issues, all sorts of, you know, wrong parts in different places, or 2 left legs, or I mean, some really, you know, or paint jobs which weren't quite right. I mean, to be fair, Hasbro, they, you know, they've replaced all of them. So I've heard. So when you contact them, you know, they're good at doing that, but it just surprises me that it happens in the first place. Which I know accidents happen, you know, or, you know, things happen in any process. But as you say, when you've got, you know, the Four Horsemen kind of knocking it out of the park, really, with figures like this, it does make you question.
Yeah, there are some QC things that pop up every now and then with the Horsemen as well, but I do think they've been able to dial it in a little bit, and I've chalked it up. And again, if you're still here, Trevor, if you can like inform us, because we're just speculating, as many people in the United States seem to like to do these days. It just seems to me, at least my speculation is that they do dial it in a little bit more, go do a little bit more of a back and forth, and their budget and their process allows for maybe a little bit more back and forth with the factory and the production team on that end of things to kind of get it right. And I just assume, having been around U.S. corporations, for-profit and nonprofit, but for-profit in particular, and know people who are in creative fields, and was once myself a creative, a designer and marketing sort of person, but mainly design, who had to deal with people, with clients, and their sense of timing and the need for turnaround, and their budget allowed for like, oh, sorry, I don't have the budget to meet with you again and have another round of design conversations or production conversations. So sometimes it's just sort of like, yeah, it is what it is. Let's go. And so my sense is with the Horsemen and what I'm seeing, and, you know, what we've known of like, oh, there's a delay in this or whatever, it's done intentionally with like some thought. But I tried my best. I was an impatient boy just to kind of achieve the look. I, against my better judgment, went in without heat, Daz, and got in those wings.
Oh, you got it. Oh, well
this
done.
Isn't fully in, so, but just to get the silhouette right, because again, these figures, the design of them, the intention, the overall silhouette of these non-human characters is just so well done. We haven't even highlighted this. I don't know if you had a chance.
I know, yeah, I've been having a little play. Well, it's just mad that actually is articulated as well. You know, it's just that, it's just that little extra detail where that just kind of, on my version, the block commander, that moves.
Oh. And yeah, so that's I haven't fully studied these. I've seen people break them down, but how this is even attached, I'm not 100% sure. If someone in the chat can clarify. But fantastic. I assume it has something to do with the joint around the waist, but look at that. Oh yeah. There is some movement in there. I'll check my other one.
You got to move side to side as well a little bit, you know.
For the unfamiliar who happen to be watching this unboxing looking for information, the Legions figures can do the splits if that's the thing you're interested in. Allows you to sort of see his, I don't know, is that a stinger? Maybe a stinger? That's a stinger that'll mess with you. And then there is a joint here at the thigh that allows you to do the rotation. It's kind of inset into this outer thigh piece. The leg itself is on the joint with a ball that allows for some movement this way, a lot of movement. The knees are single jointed, and this one's stiff, but I'm going to do it anyways because I'm stupid. But
a brave man.
Brave, stupid, you know, sometimes. There's a little bit of a cutout there to get kind of a 90 ish. Yeah, it's a 90 if I'm looking at a bone in there. Oops. Which I wouldn't because it's an insect, but whatever. I love these the anatomy of this, right? What do you call that kind of feet? Do you happen to know where it's like
I don't know.
And then we've got the calf. What is this part? The ankle with a rocker and a joint that gets some good movement there too. So I love. Oops, there you go. And it didn't fall before a break. We joke about that. I've yet to have had that happen, knock on wood, but things falling off and breaking. So this, I think I might have just jinxed myself. But, you know, got to get the action stance, or if you take martial arts or Kung Fu, get in the square horse.
But these are a toy photographer's dream, aren't they? Yeah, you know, it's...
Are they, Trevor? Are they incredible. A dream? And so unfortunately, Trevor, when he's doing these initially, they're often prototypes. So just another big ups to him and all those folks doing similar work. They're dealing with versions that don't move, and yet are able to create a dynamic thing. Micronaut Star said, tearing up over here. You hit that like that moment inside him, right? Like Ratatouille, where he started remembering his childhood Micronauts. Absolutely wonderful Star. Look at that. There you go.
Awesome.
Oh my
Force
God.
Commander.
Force Commander. Thank you.
There you go.
Aaron Karza and Force Commander with his 4 robotic nipples, which I remember as a kid, which is actually Force Commander more so. The head even reminds me a lot of the mech that he came from.
The 4 nipples, as you say, that was from a Japanese super robot character called Steel Jeeg.
Yep.
Yeah. So it just kind of came through the design when they took that mold and reused it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, we've got someone from the land. Sorry, who's gonna hate this? But from the land of Disney. Sorry. Morning from Anaheim. What's going on, Ralph? Casino Skunk Productions. Again, I love to promote and shout out all the wonderful talent that I've been able to meet here and promote what they're doing. So Casino Skunk Productions is currently in the process of doing a documentary on this TV show Lost. I don't know if that was something you're familiar with.
Yeah. Grew up with Lost.
Yes. So Ralph
I was older, but yeah.
And his buddy were big into the Lost community, fan community back in the day. And so they're now putting together this a full-on documentary that they've got an Indiegogo going on for it. So check that out. And I said I met him online. I didn't meet him online. Fun fact, I grew up like blocks away from this guy. We went to the same elementary, middle, and high school, and then reconnected again during lockdown online on Geek Dad Live. Okay. So it's a thing. Punk is still here as of 8:45. Thank you, Lawrence, for hanging out. Pains, loving the cosmics. Maybe have to get a second Sentry to do custom paint on it. Absolutely. Which again, we've been talking about paint and detail, Daz, but they do versions in this line, in this wave, as well as like in the future. They do strip down minimal deco figures that are kind of perfectly ready to go, primed, pun intended, to be customized.
So yeah,
that's what he's doing. And if you haven't checked out Pain's Toy Samples, again, he had a stream last night where he was with Random Diorama doing some work, and he himself is a customizer, like crazy talented customizer, doing custom figures, dios, you name it. Pains is working on it, and he's
I've only dabbled with customizing, but I have a huge amount of respect for people who do it, because it's not easy. They make it look easy, but it's not.
Okay, here we go. See, we blah on, we bring things up and we ask for help, and Trevor's like, dude, you asked me something, I answered you, and you ignored it. So on QC and the amazing magic that Four Horsemen are able to achieve. So Four Horsemen work with one factory and have established a great relationship with them. Chris, the production manager, also really knows his stuff and the industry. Absolutely. Chris has a background with a bunch of different toy companies, and I want to say like NECA, like has had some experience there, because I know he worked on the Gremlins, one of the Gremlins.
Okay. Wow.
And really the production managers and people who are sort of these like liaisons between US companies and Chinese factories and overseas factories, there's a handful of them. So they end up supporting a lot of lines, build a relationship, and manage production, Chris included. Chris is working on his own toy line, D13, which is sort of like based on some biblical stuff and biblical
yes I've seen those
renderings,
really cool.
like based on like historical biblical renderings of different characters. So he's like super experienced. And I love, Trevor, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but you use they. I don't know if you've maybe not yet gotten accustomed to saying we as a studio, but let's see. Star. Well, Four Horsemen are fans of the material. Yep, they produce. So I'm thinking that they're making figs the way they'd want to buy. Yeah. Absolutely. They're fans of the material and the art form. They love action figures. They've been in the game since McFarlane, right? And so they also helped push the toy game way back in the 90s. And so as that, they have probably a love and a sense of the quality they want to put out in the world. Yeah. Largo, what's going on? Haven't tried the cosmic side of Four Horsemen, but the designs look stellar. Absolutely tempting. They are fantastic. So you've got your block commander. I've got my block commander. Did you get the little 4 arms in there? I don't see his little arms in there.
I haven't put his arms in yet. Again, they're a bit tight on mine, so
they are.
I'm just going to give that a heat up a bit later.
Okay, but they are articulated too. There's a the equivalent of both a shoulder on these little baby arms, as well as an elbow.
Yes, I have noticed. Yeah, which is amazing. Again,
wild.
Because they didn't need to do that, did they? That's the thing, isn't it?
They wanted to do that, both for them, I'm sure, and for us. Yeah, this is. I know people, they like, oh, you're just fawning over these toys all the time. Honestly, if they didn't give me something to talk about, I wouldn't talk about it. Like I just showed you, they put little tiny arms in this thing that are fully articulated. Like, of course, I'm going to talk about that. We're going to mention how that's the whole thing. Accessories. This thing comes with a ton. So
the purple one. So the block commander one has a purple version.
Yep. I still got one arm to put in. Did I have? Yeah. My leg. Oh no, I've got 2 arms. It's got my 2 little arms, and just to maybe show that to folks, there is a joint there, just like you would on any standard figure. It's got a rotation, and not at the wrist. Actually, I haven't tried. Yeah, not at the wrist, but here at the elbow as well. Yeah. So that goes in, and this does move up and down, but hard to manipulate because it's such a tiny peg. You know what? I'm so silly. I just realized I was talking about how the wings use a special peg. It's not actually completely unknown to us Mythic Legions fans, because of course I forgot that it's the same peg for hands, and so it's not totally unique. Or it's not unique at all. But for larger wings, I guess I get a little nervous because there's some weight to that. How many hands did yours come with again? Like,
mine's got 8. Besides the hands he's got, so 8 pairs of hands plus what you get there, you know.
Yeah, that's again, man, for the photographers and the posers. Such good stuff. Agree with Star Largo. If you do, you will not be disappointed. Pains agrees. The wings scare me a bit. How they feel was, I was very worried about them falling off a shelf, so they went to the back. Yeah, no, for sure. Do you display with stands on top of your guy when they're on top? I guess you can't too much with your dios, huh? Like if they're on
display
that
on top
base.
of the stands.
Yeah.
I tend to try and leave a bit of space for them, because those would display well like that on a shelf. So it depends. What I've got on display at the moment, I tend to swap it around. And it just kind of keeps it interesting, because otherwise they just gather dust, don't they? And what's the point of toys if they just gather dust? So I tend to get them out, make some new stands, display them again.
Real quick, when you showed the Force Commander Star, I was like, it's powerful. I still remember the TV spots for this one and Baron Karza. Again, Star, we were kind of talking about that a little. Ooh, look at that. Sorry, you just stopped me in my tracks, friend.
Sorry, the Henshin Cyborg there. This is
that's something I never came across as a kid. I knew that they existed. They were on display in this sort of Japanese import place in LA called Pony Toy Ground that I used to check out. I'd stare at them, but
I never knew they
so
existed.
Cool.
But they're just when I got into the Micronauts and the Microman, and obviously Transformers, because they all come from the same, well, they all come from this,
That's all
G.I. Joe as well, isn't it?
From the root to the fruit, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but this is the 2000s version, so it's a bit more articulated. Less expensive as well than the was it 1960s 70s Henshin Cyborg was out, but I do love.
I will say, you're speaking about articulation, and yes, that is a modern one, but even the original Micronauts had a lot of articulation, and I think in many ways were some of the inspiration for people going back. But we had the period here in the States where things shrunk, and then particularly with the adventure people, which Kenner kind of was building off of to make Star Wars, and that obviously took off and created a whole new action figure collecting revolution for kids and playing. So we got stuck in very limited articulation for a while, but the modern articulation of joints, like a lot of that Micronauts had back in the day.
Absolutely. Microman have wrist articulation, ankle articulation. It's insane, really, for when these things came out. Because there's only, I think there were 4 years after Henshin Cyborg. So you're still talking 70s, which is, that's mad.
And then the translucent materials too. And the chrome. What's up, Quip? Yeah, no, those were all things that existed a while ago, and then kind of came in and out, and then we came back to this highly articulated, exploring ball joints, connection of accessory pegs all over the body, and like it's coming full circle. And it's not like movies now where you've got the nerds that loved the originals when we were kids and now making these things. Same goes for toys, right? So they're like, remember Micronauts? Or what if we blended the idea of Lego with action figures, and it's a glorious time.
I tell you what, on a side note, what's weird, have you ever thought, because Mego, who made the Micronauts, they nearly got the rights to Star Wars, didn't they?
They did.
So I wonder, what would they have looked like? What would Star Wars figures be like if Mego made them?
Yeah. And we've only heard that they didn't get it right, and we haven't heard too many details as to why, or at least I haven't come across them. But I suspect because of the timeline that Lucas was under, like, you know, they wanted those things out, and of course, you know, because of the reaction to the film and everything, they rushed it even more. But there was a compressed timeline, right, in terms of wanting to get toys out to market. And so knowing what Mego has to go through, both in terms of design and engineering, I wonder if that was part of the factor in why we ended up with 5 POA.
What I heard, there was a guy who worked for Mego who turned the offer down. It's a big, you know.
Oh yeah. Yes, no, I have heard this. That's true.
The head poncho guy. I don't know his name.
I have heard this.
He would have taken it. He would have like taken.
The
offer.
And the rationale I've heard was because he just didn't think that movie tie-ins were really worth it, and I get that. So yeah, you're right. That could have been the reasoning, but I can also imagine that had they moved forward, I can only imagine that he would have also balked at maybe the lead time that they needed to get these things to market, because there's a lot that has to go into those old Mego toys, whether they're their Mego Heroes lines, there's a lot of articulation there, or if they were to try and chase what they had brought over from Takara. Anyway, Quip says, I've dabbled with pop and swap customization. I haven't tried custom paint jobs yet. They can go sideways. You would be surprised, especially with water-based paints, how, like, if you're not feeling good about it, you could sort of reclaim a little bit. But my recommendation for that, which I'm going to do, is like some of these figures that go on clearance. Those are fun. Yeah.
That's what I do. I pick up your bargain bucket, you know, figures, and take them apart and just have a play. That's the best way to do it, isn't it? Have a play.
And again, for me, I wish I could just say that, but I need people like you to show me, to encourage me to play. So like, let me show you how to do this very simple thing. Like we were saying earlier in the stream about your channel. Again, if you're just joining us, please check out Daz's channel, where he really takes this sort of like approach to diorama building for the beginner, right? And kind of walks you through it in a way that I think is very sort of encouraging. And start small, all of those, even to the paint. I'm noticing, I wanted to comment on this earlier, and this is not a diss at all, but the two platforms you have from a painting perspective, there's not actually a whole lot that you need to do. You've got the base coat of the purple and then the shadow, right, with the black details.
That's it. It's just the wash. Yeah, that's it.
And you're doing essentially one even color roughly around it, and it's not perfect because it's the Star Wars philosophy of a well-worn world, right?
And I think that's the thing. It's embracing that a little bit, isn't it? It's because that's what would happen, And so, the idea behind them is that anybody could have a go at that.
Yep. And then I showed you the little weird little dio, or I keep saying dio. I mean, it's a dio. It's a background, but
it is
this thing that I did. And people were wondering about like the colors and how did you arrive at such a like weird combination of colors? One, there's precedent for like a big mountain thing, but let's be real. I was doing this on a stream and didn't have time to prep. That's the original material color right there, which is pink insulation foam. So it sure makes it easier to kind of stick to that color as the base. So
you've got almost like a shell shaded effect, haven't you? Like the cartoon shade. It's almost, that's what it reminds me of.
A little bit, the black attempt in between. Sorry, I know I'm not trying to give people motion sickness, but what that was attempting to do was sort of a mortar type thing, but also the shadows in those areas. This is my first time, so I wasn't sure what would read from a distance and stuff. So
it looks great.
Yeah, not intentional, but it worked. Thank you. And then just, knowing from my art background, I'm like, oh, I want to do some highlights and let me get a weird contrast color that you wouldn't expect, but that'll pop. And again, keeping in line with the fantasy of it all. Anyway, all inspired by this guy. So again, if you haven't checked out that, you really ought to. Oops, that's the Twitch version. So yeah. Yes, in fact, Berserk was first in a certain, depending on your point of view when it comes to time. What's going on, Berserk? Check out Fig Bunker. Micronauts, man. See, I found that not enough people are talking about Micronauts. Daz has a lot of great stuff on his channel about Micronauts. Introduced me to versions of the Micronauts system that were used in Italy that I didn't even know about. Micronauts scale covered them all. So
But the
start
battle cruiser.
from a Croyer and Time Traveler to Biotron, Baron
Yeah.
Karzat, Hydrocopter, and the Battle Cruiser. All the parts were interchangeable 100%.
Yeah.
Like I've said this
well
a
ahead
couple
of its
different
time.
Yeah, and I don't even know how my brother and I ended up with our weird little, must have been about a 11 by 11 box, about 6 inches, or maybe 7 inches, of a bunch of random bits. I think it was from one of my uncles who were like my dad's youngest siblings, who were maybe 6 or 7 years older than my brother, who were like maybe just handed them to us. But he and I had some figures. My brother definitely had a Baron Karzat that was his, purchased for him. And then we each had a Time Traveler. But then suddenly we had this box of most of the bits of a battle cruiser. The only things missing were the projectile.
Yeah.
And they were a little dinged up, but they worked. The battery engine and everything worked as well. We had a hydrocopter, which, if it's the one I'm thinking of, was like the ball sphere.
Yeah, that's the one.
But we had the second go around version, the yellow version, because it was brought here twice.
I think I only know the yellow version. What was the other version?
I think the original Mego here in the United States was different. Yeah, the shell was a different color, and then they re-released them later, right?
Yes. Well,
and so I
there's
thought the
another
yellow was
company
a
that
re-release.
brought them out and
Yeah,
released them under a different line, because you
I
had Lord of
think
Light
so.
as well.
Yeah,
So you do get different variations on them.
Because I just remember looking at mine and seeing like the ads and going like, oh, mine was different. So I just sort of assumed that mine was not like the first, but maybe it was. Didn't have a Biotron.
Yeah,
but
I've got a
those
Biotron
pieces were
now.
great.
Yeah, but they're beautiful. Yeah.
And just as Star pointed out, you can mix and match. So again, to bring it back to Cosmic Legions, because I don't want to totally go upside, like there's a lot of mixing and matching that can happen with these, and with a sort of cottage industry of indie artisans creating 3D printed parts and resin parts and all of that. There's a whole library out there for people to kind of like take these. You can mix them with Mythic Legions, with Figure Obscura, and you can do some wild
you could
things.
even take the hands and the antennae from the block commander and put them onto the Sphexxian guard, couldn't you? So if you wanted to change the color scheme,
Yep.
go for
The hands are a little bit darker, I want to say.
Because there's a white version of this guy coming out. Is that in wave 2 or 3?
That's the minor.
Is that the minor? Okay.
Yeah. Real cool.
I've got him on pre-order. Yeah.
Yep. Micronauts and Microman and Micronauts were game changers in the 70s. Really love those early Micronauts kids. Awesome. So I'm so glad that we've got,
nice to see the Micronauts love happening in the chat. I like it.
Our older folks. Yeah. Thanos says, I need to go back to my accessory boxes and sort hands. I have too many from different lines, all bouncing around the same box. I didn't think it would be bad. Yeah, but they've gotten out of hand. Well done. That dad joke drop at the end. Scar says there's a swivel wrist, and I'm wondering, was he referring to these? I don't think so.
Well, there isn't the main hand.
Oh my God, there is.
Is there? On the small one?
Even on the little one. I just assumed that was one piece.
Oh yeah. That's insane.
Thank you for teaching us about our toys. Wow. Yes, sorry. I brought this up earlier, but didn't read it. Thank you, Quip. Yeah, those insect humanoids from the Cosmic line are the most tempting to me. Such a wild design. Yeah, same here. Speaking of which, so I know so far, those are the two you've gotten and are going to land on, huh? From Cosmic Legions? Those two are the two from that first wave?
These two, these are the only two.
And that's...
Yeah, I mean, I might pick up some more now if I can.
Right.
If I can find them for a decent price. As I said, I got these on eBay because I missed the boat with the pre-order. So
not a ton of local retailers that are
no, not for us over here. I mean, we can order direct, but it's quite a bit of shipping. So
what about collectors? Is there like a collector community that you've been aware of out there?
There's a Facebook group for the Mythics line, so I'd imagine there would be with the Cosmics. I could see that happening.
Vaults of Icon, who I learned about through your channel.
Yay! Hello, Ed.
Yeah. Dennis Fisher Cyborg.
Yeah, amazing. I've got some of the accessories for Dennis Fisher, but I haven't got the actual their version, which was smaller.
Yep.
So they did a version of
God, that thing is so cool.
Cyborg, which was a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, there's just some really great things, man. I was looking to kind of recreate some of the Micronauts type stuff with like a oh my God, I'm blanking. What is his name? Hagnon. And the translucent, there's a ghost figure in Mythic Legions, and then there's a couple of them coming out in the Necronominus wave of translucent sort of ghosty type things. I wonder what we'll see in Cosmics when it comes to sort of transparent bits. I'd love to kind of see some Micronaut style. I also had a custom head for Legions of my head, and one of the goals is to paint one in a metallic. And be a time traveler type thing. Fantastic. One of those many goals. Just like I saw your channel, was like, I'm going to build dios, and it took me about a year to do it. So maybe year 2 of Brick Something, the channel. I asked about which ones you got because I too, with this first wave, wasn't able.
Haven't you?
Yeah, but I wasn't able to do like the whole line, and I sadly because it's not because they're not great. I had to do some picking and choosing. So I ended up with this guy. These 3.
Yeah. The other guy I was going to pick up was the orange guy at the top. Yeah, I was really tempted by him. And obviously Slog, but as I said, I missed the boat.
I want him too, but I can't, right? Yeah, I had to. Yeah. So the ones I showed you, and then the Sphexxians. I'm totally missing out on these Tusk sort of warriors. This one they all look great, but you do what you got to do, right? And so,
the only other one I've got on pre-order is is it their version of kind of Many Faces? They're doing is that in wave 3?
Yes, it's.
I don't know what his name is. It's like.
I'm sure someone will be able to tell. Let's see. Tell us. What's the name of that Many Faces guy? He was actually just finally released and shown at PowerCon. I have to wait for mine. I pre-ordered him.
Yeah.
But at PowerCon,
they had him. But that reminded me again of the the whole Paralords gimmick, turn in the face. Just a nice little.
That original Power Lords protagonist, literally you just switch his torso and a Kroyer 3 had to be the inspiration for all Transformers merging characters. Maybe Star. I think you might be onto something, except for the Japanese mecha things were the combiners, right? Before Transformers. But I wonder, did they predate?
Kroyer predated.
Okay. And it's in-house. It's Takara.
Micro Change was part of the Microman line. So Micro Change is the precursor for Transformers. So it all links together, which is really cool.
So the combiners from there you go. See, I love it. Vault of Icon, the combiners from 1985, such as Bruticus, Defensor, etc., were intended for the Diaclone range in 85, as you're pointing out. But were transferred over to Transformers. Cobb, another just amazing YouTuber, another fellow Californian from SoCal, just subbed over to you. Definitely.
I appreciate it.
Check it out, Cobb. And let's get together and build, man. Let's finish this out. The line would have been called Jisai Gatai, I think, maybe, or Infinite Combination.
Oh, I did not know that.
You're right. Diaclone was a forerunner Transformers. Just remember Kroyer 3 having his arms be smaller figs long before Transformers. First time I remember seeing that. Yeah, I love it. Good stuff. Wasn't Microman the beginning? It became Micronauts here in the States. Yep. And Diaclone. Yep. You know, I've been sitting on this video that I did with an amazing customizer who's trying to sort of revive the love for Micronauts.
Abe,
isn't it? Yep. Abe Froman.
That's the one.
The Sausage King of Chicago. It was a Ferris Bueller reference, so that's not his real name. But yes, and so
amazing.
I haven't been able to edit it.
Yeah,
and he's doing some work with his son, and we went through the whole like history of Micronauts. So it's sitting on a hard drive, and I swear it's a good conversation. And
I'd love to see that.
Editing is my enemy right now, man. Even with AWOC talk,
because he's now doing larger scale versions of the Micronauts, because he was doing the same size versions, and now he's started to 3D print the bigger versions, which is quite cool.
It's very cool. Vaults Viacon says, I love that Gotcha Man Phoenix looking spaceship. That would be the one that you invoke, the battle cruiser, especially the side sort of ones that kind of look like triggers. They had the nose that looked exactly like the Phoenix, which is what I did with mine as a kid. We're finding our fellow oldies over here, man. Battle of the Planets as a kid. Then I saw the original Japanese Gotcha Man that was so superior to what we got in Battle of the Planets. I felt robbed. Casey Kasem is rolling in his grave, but rightfully so, because 7's Arc 7 sucked.
But see, it's a weird one though, isn't it? Because nostalgia is a weird thing. Because I watched Gotcha Man afterwards, and although I can appreciate it as an anime fan, it doesn't hit me nostalgically like Battle of the Planets does.
And culturally, there are things that the Japanese were doing with their storytelling that didn't quite work for Western audiences. I'll speak for the United States. I think that they felt they needed to do those changes. And because of that, we took it in a particular way. And same with Mospita and Macross and Robotech and Southern Cross, right? Operative. There you go. Thank you. Operative 83 was the name of that. Many Faces. Oh, sorry, I missed this, but yes, Like You.
That's the one.
Battle of the Planets was absolutely amazing back then. It was my favorite animated show up until I saw my first episode of Robotech. There you go again. One of the we're traveling in the same circle as children. The toys that made us, absolutely. And as a kid in Downey, California, living a couple of blocks down from this guy, I remember the version, Americanized version that I mentioned. And yes, Transor Z came out a little bit later too, was the Mazinger Z and Great Mazinger kind of take in the United States.
And again, the Mazinger Z creator, he created Still G, which was the inspiration for Micronauts. And it all comes, absolutely full circle. It's insane.
Hey, I'm supposed to ask you about Jamie and the Magic Torch. I'm assuming it's something from your neck of the woods that we hear.
You did they get that in America?
Nope.
Jamie,
I don't think so.
Jamie,
unless it's known as something else.
Magic Torch. Yeah, he was a little kid and his dog and a magic torch. Yeah, it was one of our
live
childhood.
action or
no, cartoon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I asked because I was wondering if it was like the nightmare fuel of HR Puffin stuff and the Sid and Marty Krofft. I don't know if you're familiar with that. The
Nope.
Land of the Lost. Anyways,
you
Land said Magic
Lost,
Torch. So Land of the Lost, done by Sid and Marty Krofft. They did several other shows, including HR Puffin stuff. That should probably give you a clue as to the sorts of things that might have inspired some of the things that they did on screen. It seemed like very psychedelic. It was a kid who lands from the United States, gets shipwrecked on an island of like giant puppet sea monster type creatures. And there's a witch on a broom with an engine, a flute that's a magic flute that talks. So when you said torch. Anyways, this is always a wonderful way to kind of
that's a show in itself, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. We come back to the nostalgia of it. And yes, through Nickelodeon, we were able to embrace Danger Mouse and
fantastic
and Duckula And what else did we get from the UK? I'm blanking.
Did you get Pigeon Street?
No, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember it. I don't remember it. If so, I remember Thunderbirds.
Mr. Ben.
Thunderbirds are, oh my God, Go, right?
Yeah, Thunderbirds Go.
Sorry,
Did
only
you get
because
the
only because
Japanese one? Did you get the Starfleet X-Bomber?
No.
That was amazing.
I was aware of it through Pony Toy Around in LA. Sorry, I paused on Thunderbirds because I have a friend's band who to avoid copyright issues, they call themselves Thunderbirds are now. But yes, Thunderbirds are Go. See, they know. HR Puff
I don't know Puffin stuff.
Don't show it to your kid. No, I mean you can, but it's kind of a trip. Shogun Warriors blew me away.
My neck of the woods, so if he's seen it, it probably was over here at some point.
Shogun Warriors blew me away when I was a kid. I had Mazinga and Godzilla of the Giant Figs. I had no idea where they came from. Just loved them. Never knew they were animated shows. I was a kid who, thanks to my older brother, who for whatever reason was able to pull some strings with Lolo and Lola, or Grandma and Grandpa, aunts and uncles, and my parents, because they weren't in a position to buy toys. But they were immigrants from the Philippines who I think were trying to, create an experience, I think, for their kids. And I was born into a house that had a Godzilla and a Rodan. I think Rodan came later. I was already older. But those toys were literally bigger than me.
Yeah, they're huge.
For a while. And they were amazing. And those right there are the one toy that both my brother and I, regret are no longer with us, because those were glorious.
Megabooks as well. They're worth a lot of money. Really sought after.
In my classroom, because we're both teachers, there is the Shogun Warrior style Skeletor hanging out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And my students don't give up at all. They're like, what's this dude with his stuff? You had animal crackers?
That rings a bell, but I can't know. Yeah, but apparently.
You're good, man. This is how it works. So we go. And so, like, again, I think to tie it back to the Four Horsemen and Cosmic Legions, if this isn't them taking strolls down memory lane to get some inspiration for new toys, I don't know what is. They've mentioned being in love with Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials, which was also the inspiration for Power Lords. Not even inspiration. When they were doing
he was
Power
the
Lords,
designer, wasn't he? On Power Lords,
they wanted to basically make toys of his stuff, but they couldn't because of the publisher, so they created all new things. So this whole thing of old folks waxing philosophical about the stuff that they liked as kids, that's what these creatives do, really, and it fuels this stuff. I was mentioning earlier being able to talk with Nate Barch at that Mythic meetup, and he and some others, like big folks in the Legions community, is the Wiz. We're talking about, like, they love Lego, and we were just going on all about Lego. So it's all there, and it informs these toys, as we've sort of said. I'm sure Micronauts was there too. Captain Scarlet, is that a UK thing?
Yeah, Captain Scarlet is the same creator of Thunderbirds and Terror Hawks.
Oh, okay. Got it. I've seen some of those. Some of it's
there's Joe 90.
Fantastic. Well. Let's see. Danger Mouse. Yes, hanging out in that. That's how I learned what your mailboxes look like.
Yeah. Red mailboxes. Yeah.
Godzilla was great. Again, a little bit of a head scratcher.
Lots of people didn't did they? The Godzilla fans did not like the Hanna-Barbera, but I grew up on that and I loved it.
Yeah. I liked it too, and where I was going with the head scratching is because he was saying, I have no idea where the Shogun Warriors came from. Even that Godzilla, you got to scratch your head as to, like, where that design came from, because it had nothing to do with the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and it had nothing to do with Gojira from Japan. So, but it was cool. Oops, wait, I jumped around, got away from me. Yeah, HR Puff and stuff was mesmerizing. Definitely drug inspired. Seriously, look it up, folks. We are not just being prudish and just saying, oh yeah, they were on drugs. Like, no, like, they were on drugs. I mean, come on. It's HR Puffin stuff. What you puffing? What stuff you puffing on there, buddy? And it
Don't
sounds
ask
slightly
about
British.
Captain Pugwash. That's a whole different conversation.
Okay. Cosmic Legions look like, yep. What I'd think modern day sectars would look like. Yeah, I think sectars, again, it screams Micronauts 2 to me, because it's like, you know, they did later some of the aliens.
Interestingly, Nacelle, is it Nacelle? Is that how it's
It is
pronounced?
Nacelle, yep.
Who
Toys
did
That Made Us.
Sectors and are re-releasing Sectors, aren't they? They also have the rights to Paralords.
Oh, okay. So they're working on a Paralord.
Apparently, they're working on some ideas for that. So that's being interesting again. Circle.
Wing fell off because I never pushed it all the way in. It's intact, folks. You know,
Yeah.
so life is good. Yeah, they do have that, and I was looking forward to the nacelle, and I still am, but it seems very throwbacky. That's the thing with nacelle. I don't know if how they approach the different lines. Like if they want to say we want to essentially continue the old toys, and like because aesthetically it's very much almost like a direct continuation of a line you could see, and the renderings all look like really stiff, and so there's those original figures. I have some old beat up ones, locked, like the old Masters of the Universe locked elbows.
Yeah,
they had a ball joint here. They had a ball joint in the hips. They had a knee joint. But when I look at those things, I'm trying to see, because what I want are sectars done in. You don't even have to redesign them aesthetically, because I think those sculpts hold up and the designs hold up. But I want modern articulation. I do.
Yeah.
I'm not usually an articulation guy, but when I'm going to put them against at least these guys, or an AWOC figure, I want them to be able to, you know, dynamically like hang out, go to battle, train, whatever.
There was another company that released Sectors, wasn't there, a number of years ago? They did modern versions, but did was it smaller scale?
Zika Toys at roughly about a 4-inch figure. Yeah. Great looking, especially at that size. It was amazing what they could get.
But again, the articulation wasn't there, was it?
Those are more. They looked more articulated, but yeah, they weren't like highly articulated, like say an Epic Hacks kind of thing. But more so than what I'm visually seeing from what are clearly prototypes from Nacelle. And the only reason I bring that up too that I'm feeling a little more worried about the articulation, is that they did the Biker Mars from Mars in a similar way, and then just recently showed that they will have these joints, but they're still kind of limited. So yeah, Godzuki definitely was a Scrappy Doo slash what was the alien on the Flintstones, you know, just attempting to switch things up, get a little cute character.
It's the cutesy factor, isn't it? Yeah, and merchandising. It's that kind of.
And I'm all for cute, but anyways, and then that makes sense. I don't understand the need for characters like the Scrappy Doos unless they're trying to appeal to even younger audiences. Yeah, and then I think keep the line going. Yeah. And of course, there's this. Anyway, Daz, I think we should probably start to wrap it up. But you know, thank you for we did this really quickly. I think we're saying hey, I know you've had some stuff going on that end, and so channel stuff kind of paused for a little bit. Right.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm working on some kind of Chinese painting style mountains for the 4 Horsemen Monkey King.
Wukong, really?
Yeah,
man,
yeah. So
that's great.
That's the next one in my head.
And you say Chinese style. Sorry, when you say Chinese style, I want to go back to, you mean like the mountains done, like physical 3D mountains done in that style?
They kind of have that kind of, they're almost kind of more rounded, aren't they? You know, not kind of so jagged, you know. So again, something that's just hopefully quite simple to do, because I'm still aiming at that beginner's market. That's the, you know, the thing. So yeah, that's hopefully the next one. So
cool. Well, I'm glad that we got to do an unboxing together, because we've been talking about how great these cosmics
really good.
are.
Thank you.
We figured it out. As long as I wake up at about 6 or whatever, get set up, we could do like you in the afternoon, which is, like I mentioned to you, where I'm a teacher, I'm used to waking up early. So it's possible. But it was great to finally see you face to face, man. This was fantastic. Yeah. And so
I appreciate it. You've been as I said, a big supporter of the channel for a long time, and it's been great to see your channel grow as well. So
yeah, thanks.
it's been good.
Yes,
It's been good.
support. The community's great. We were talking about this earlier too.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of us that sort of started around the pandemic, and it's been cool to kind of meet each other. And more people are connecting on live streams like this, doing collaborative stuff, trying to send folks. Like, really, we all win. Meaning, like, the audience. Like, if you just like toys, you'd be surprised at what's out there. So just listen to us. Check out these folks. It's a fun time. And then I think now people are getting together at PowerCon. I know a bunch of folks are going to get together in person at Legion's Con. So, like, truly the community's building.
And producing their own toys, though. That's the thing, isn't it? You know, it's
that's perfect. Let me on that. Let me bounce off that. So, Toy Connections. Ken has he's positioned himself to be a little bit of a sort of historian, documenting all the toys that he loves. And so he's kind of talked about, he's heard a lot of people talking about the golden age of toys before, and then like different time periods. Now he's saying, I see this current period as a toy renaissance, and sort of, Eurocentric use of historical terms aside. But yeah, there's the notion of the concept behind that, of this, like, this sort of rebirth and reconnecting to old things and bringing it back out. That makes sense to me too. And one of the things is what you just mentioned, the fans becoming creators now. And really the Four Horsemen, who we really highlighted today with some Cosmic Legions unboxings, are pivotal, I think.
Absolutely.
Played a key role in that. We've talked a lot about it today in terms of the sculpts, the details, and we talked about Glyos. So I'm saying all that as a reminder, because tonight, actually, at I'll put it on my community tab. I don't know the exact time, but over on Toy Connections, I'll be on there with them talking about this idea of a toy renaissance. And we're going to go through some of the indie toys that are actually in hand now. So that's sorry, let me do it. I cannot do it. Bad shill if I don't say AWOC. And so we're going to be talking about AWOC. We're going to be talking about Cosmic Legions, Mythic Legions. I'm going to, because I'm going to be the person showing Memory Toys stuff, their Fury Planet stuff, and, D20. It's an explosion right now, and there's a lot of great toys. And what we're noticing, especially from the indies, is like, it's the quality, it's the love that's being put into these things that is fascinating. So that's tonight. How about you? What else have you got going on? When are you thinking maybe we'll see some stuff like you said with a Sun Wukong dial? No pressure.
Well, it's just as long as it takes, really, so it tends to be one of those things. I chip away at it, start filming it, put it together, and that could be something that happens in a week. It could take a month, it really depends. And these are just basics as well. These aren't even like your huge dios or your big set, designs that people make, which are incredible. So, so even in a simpler way, it still takes a bit of time to do. Especially, juggling life and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also trying to do my own artwork.
Juggling the geek dad life is what you're referring
to?
Sorry, you said your own artwork. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. So trying to get into the whole digital side with that, So
okay. So you've got an art practice doing some digital work. Very cool.
Yeah.
You gonna share any of that anytime soon on the channel? Or you're still kind of
at the moment, I kind of keep that separate. So I showed a few sketches just from my sketchbook on my last video, but that I don't tend to share my artwork that much on the channel, but maybe,
Gotcha.
So we'll see.
Cool. We'll have a whole other conversation. Yeah, that's something that I've picked up and put down. But yeah, I would love to just talk art too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so subscribe to Daz's channel, folks. This has been great doing this like global thing. I haven't done this yet, which is awesome. And if you wouldn't mind, you've got that one. You've got your other guy there. So Cosmic Legions is all good. Accessories. I didn't even go through all the accessories, but whatever, you got it. Like if you're looking for our channels to figure out if you should buy Cosmic Legions, like there's nothing we can tell you that hasn't already been said, because this stuff is just great. Check it out for yourself. do they hold up from what you saw in pictures and videos to getting them in hand?
I would say they're even better, because you don't get a feel for the articulation, do you? You appreciate the sculpt, you appreciate how they look, but when you get them in hand and you see, even just as we mentioned earlier, those, you know, those wrist joints, those tiny arms, you know, they don't need to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even known that if it wasn't someone today.
Absolutely. So it's that kind of attention to detail, isn't it? Both in the you know, the engineering of the figure and the way it looks. I think that really makes them a standout. So yeah, I would definitely be picking up a few more of these in the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I think we are. Yeah, no, thank you, man. I'm so glad we got to do this. To everybody in the chat, really, really, really appreciate you all kind of like coming through. You know, we did this really last minute. I think I put a community post about it 10 minutes or 15 minutes before we actually jumped on live. So appreciate that folks could, as they're waking up here in the United States, could hop on. Hope everybody has a wonderful Saturday and whatever's left of it over there. And like I said, I'll see you tonight on Toy Connections. And tomorrow, I am now finally doing a weekly thing, thanks to Thanos here, who kicked me in the butt and served as my first co-host last week. Tomorrow at 4:30 on Sundays, and I think that's what the actual time, 4:30 Pacific, every week for roughly about an hour. So then you can go off and check out even better streams like Hello Dope Toys or Geek Dad Life. Or just Shelvet's stuff they've got going on, I think, on Sunday nights too. I do the news, the needless ephemera we saw. So this week's co-host will be Allison Troy, the retro toy princess, and that should be good. And that's going to follow week after week with different hosts. Next week will be with Silver K of Geek the F Out. So that's what we've got going on over here. So again, check out Dazatrons Diorama Llama. Check out Brick Something. Hit like and subscribe to both of our channels. That would be wonderful. And we'll catch you all later. So thank you, folks.
Nice chatting, guys. It's been really good. Yeah.
Have a great, great, great weekend. And I'm going to see if I can do this cool thing, which is not really that cool. Bye-bye.